She stood there at the gate, arms crossed, blocking the hearse like she owned the ground it rolled on. The black car idled, engine rumbling, while the driver looked at me through the mirror, unsure what to do. I could barely breathe. My wife's coffin was inside that car, and this woman, this HOA Karen, had the nerve to say, "You can't bring that in here. It violates community rules." For a second, I thought I misheard her. Maybe grief had made my brain foggy. But then she stepped closer, waving a clipboard like it was some kind of badge. "This area is private property. Funerals aren't permitted without HOA authorization," she said, emphasizing every word like she was reading scripture. I clenched my fists. "This is my property," I said quietly. "My wife lived here, died here, and she's going to rest here." Karen tilted her head, her fake sympathy dripping through her tone. "I understand your emotions, Mr. Walker, but we have rules. You should have filled out the HOA event form for a funeral." The driver looked at me again, his eyes saying what I couldn't. "Is this real?" I took a step toward her. "Move." She didn't. Instead, she pulled out her phone and said, "Then I'm calling the police. You can't threaten an HOA board member." I almost laughed. Threaten? I was the one being held hostage by red tape and ego in the worst moment of my life. My brother, standing beside me, whispered, "Jake, calm down. Let's handle this smart." But Karen was already on the phone, putting on her fake panic voice. "Yes, officer. There's a man trying to force entry into the community." "Yes, with a casket." The words hit me like a punch. A casket. She said it like it was a weapon. Within minutes, flashing lights appeared down the road. The real police this time. I could feel every neighbor's curtain twitching, phones coming out, people whispering. I stood still as the cops got out of the car, one young, one older, both confused as hell when they saw the hearse. Karen ran toward them before they even reached the gate. "That's him. He's trying to bring an unauthorized structure onto HOA grounds." "Structure?" I muttered under my breath. The older cop glanced at me, then at the hearse, then back at her. "Ma'am, what exactly is going on here?" "She's in there," I said, my voice breaking. "My wife." That made the young officer stop cold. He turned to Karen slowly. "You called us. For this?" Karen huffed, clearly realizing she was losing control. "This is a private neighborhood. We can't allow things like this without approval." "Approval?" The older cop cut her off. "You're telling me you stopped a funeral because of HOA paperwork?" Karen hesitated, realizing for the first time how bad she looked. But it was too late. The neighbors had come outside now, cameras rolling, and I could see it in her eyes. Panic. She had no idea what was coming next. The silence that followed was so thick it could choke you. Even the birds had gone quiet. The cop turned toward me, his tone shifting. "Sir, go ahead and bring the car in." "We'll handle this," Karen snapped. "No, you can't just ignore the HOA's authority." But the older cop cut her off with a look that could freeze fire. "Ma'am, unless you're part of law enforcement, you don't have authority here." I motioned to the driver, and the hearse slowly rolled forward. Karen suddenly stepped in front again, shouting, "Stop! If that vehicle crosses the line, I'll have it towed." That was it. I lost the last bit of restraint I had left. I walked right up to her. Not close enough to threaten, just enough for her to see what she'd done. My eyes burned. "You already took my piece. Don't take her dignity, too." She looked unsure now, voice trembling but stubborn. "Rules are rules." "Then maybe it's time someone rewrote them," I said. The older cop nodded slightly, like he agreed. He turned to his partner. "Let's make sure they get through safely." But just as the hearse began to roll, Karen's phone rang. She looked down, and her lips curled into a smug smile. "You might want to wait before you dig that hole," she said. "The HOA president is on his way, and he's bringing legal backup." My brother muttered, "You've got to be kidding me." Minutes later, a black SUV pulled up. A man in a gray suit stepped out. The kind of guy who oozed arrogance. Slick hair, designer shades, and a voice that could cut glass. "Mr. Walker, I'm afraid you've violated Community Policy 7A regarding unauthorized use of common grounds." "She's not common ground," I said through clenched teeth. "That's my wife," he smirked. "Not anymore. The property line ends before that garden you're pointing to. Trade jurisdiction applies. You'll have to take this up with the board before you proceed." The crowd murmured. Even Karen looked uneasy now. She hadn't expected him to take it that far. I reached into my pocket, my hand shaking, but not from fear. From fury. I pulled out a folded document, creased and worn. "This says otherwise," I said, handing it to the officer. "Deed, signed by the previous owner before the HOA was even formed. I gardened that land, every inch of it. Belongs to me." Karen's mouth fell open. The HOA president blinked, clearly thrown off. "That's outdated," he tried to say, but the cop was already reading it. "It's still valid," the officer said firmly. "Says right here, non-HOA property. Private family land." A hush swept through the crowd. Someone whispered, "She really messed up this time." Karen stepped back, face pale, trying to collect herself. This can't, but it was." I turned to her slowly. "You called the cops on a husband trying to bury his wife. On his own land." She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her authority was gone, her words dying in her throat, and I hadn't even shown her the footage yet. I could feel everyone's eyes burning into us, the neighbors, the officers, even the driver waiting by the hearse. Karen's face had drained of all color, but the HOA president still tried to salvage what was left of his ego. "Even if this deed is valid," he said, tugging at his tie, "your actions have disrupted community order. You can't just—" I cut him off. "You want to talk about disruption? You just turned my wife's funeral into a neighborhood circus." Karen's lips trembled. "You didn't have to make this public." I let out a short, bitter laugh. "You made it public, Karen. You called the police. You stood in front of her coffin. You screamed about rules while my son was watching from the car." Her eyes flicked toward my son, 12 years old, sitting in the back seat, staring blankly at the scene. His small hands gripped the window frame like he didn't know whether to cry or hide. That sight broke something in me. "You see what you did?" I said quietly, but every word hit her like a hammer. "You didn't just humiliate me. You made a child think his mother wasn't welcome home." For the first time, she didn't answer. She just looked down. The officer handed my deed back to me. "Mr. Walker, you're within your rights to proceed. We'll make sure no one interferes further." I nodded, my throat tight. The hearse began moving again, slow and steady. The tires crunched over gravel, carrying the last piece of my wife back home. But just as the car passed through the gate, Karen whispered, almost too low to hear, "This isn't over." That one line froze me. My brother heard it too. "She's planning something," he murmured. I didn't answer. I just looked at her, at that smug, stubborn look slowly creeping back onto her face, and I knew she wouldn't stop. People like her never did. Later that evening, after the small burial ceremony, I sat alone by the grave. The wind was still. My phone buzzed. It was a notification and a video link from a neighbor. Title: HOA Karen stops funeral, calls cops on widower. Someone had filmed everything. The confrontation, the cops, her screaming at the hearse. It had already hit 20,000 views in less than 2 hours. I clicked on the comments. "She needs to be fired from the HOA, heartless witch. Man, I hope he sues her." I leaned back against the chair, exhaling. The internet had already taken notice. But the real twist? That neighbor who filmed everything. He wasn't just a neighbor. He was a local news reporter, and tomorrow morning, this story was going national. By sunrise, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. News channels, reporters, even strangers were calling. Everyone wanted a statement. The clip of Karen stopping the hearse had spread like wildfire. It was everywhere: Facebook, Reddit, YouTube. Even morning talk shows had picked it up. The video started with Karen shouting, "You can't bring that in here," and ended with the cop saying, "You stopped a funeral over paperwork." That line alone had become a meme overnight. Someone even captioned it, "When HOA power goes to your head." I didn't ask for any of this. I just wanted peace. But it seemed justice had decided to show up loud. Around 10 a.m., my brother stormed into my kitchen with his phone in hand. "Jake, you need to see this." He turned the screen toward me. A video of Karen outside her house, reporters crowding around her yard. She was yelling, "I didn't do anything wrong." He broke HOA policy while holding a towel over her face to block the cameras. "Looks like she's the talk of the town," my brother said. "Yeah," I replied, staring at the screen. "But she'll twist it. She'll say it was all a misunderstanding." "She can try," he said, "but I think she's already lost." That afternoon, I got a call from Channel 7 News. "Mr. Walker, we'd love to have you on for a short interview. The public's furious about how you were treated." I hesitated. "I don't want to turn this into a show." "Understandable," the reporter said, "but sometimes silence lets them control the story." That line stuck with me, because Karen was already trying to control it. By evening, the HOA released a statement calling the situation regrettable and claiming it was all a procedural misunderstanding. I knew exactly who wrote it. She wasn't sorry. She was covering herself, so I decided to speak. When I sat down in the studio the next morning, I brought something with me, my body cam footage. My wife and I had used it for safety when I worked late. It had caught everything. Karen yelling at the driver, threatening to tow the hearse, calling the cops, even her words, "This isn't over." I handed the footage to the reporter before the interview started. "You might want to check this before we go live." He watched a few seconds, then looked up, eyes wide. "You sure you want this aired?" "Yeah," I said. "People deserve to see what really happened." When the red light blinked on, the world saw the full truth. No edits, no spin. Just Karen's voice echoing across every screen in America. Within hours, the HOA office shut down its comments. Their phone lines were flooded, but Karen, she disappeared. Her car gone, her house dark, at least, until the next day. That's when I got the message request on Facebook. From her, it said, "Meet me tonight. I want to apologize, but not on camera." That message hit harder than I expected. For a second, I just stared at it, reading those words again and again. She wants to apologize, but not on camera. My brother saw my expression change. "What happened?" "Karen messaged me," I said quietly. He frowned. "Don't tell me you're actually going to meet her." "I don't know yet," I replied. She sounded different. Not her usual bossy self, he sighed. "Jake, she humiliated you in front of the whole world. Don't give her another chance to spin it." But something in me needed to hear it. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I wanted to see her face when she realized how wrong she was. Either way, I texted back, "Where?" She replied instantly. "At the park near the main gate, 9 p.m. That was the same park where she had stopped the hearse. The irony didn't escape me. When I got there, the night was quiet, cold. The park lamps cast long shadows across the grass. I saw her standing by the bench, clutching a folder, her posture stiff but unsure. A woman who'd finally lost control of the world she built around herself. She turned when she heard my footsteps. "You came," she said softly. "I almost didn't," I replied. "What do you want, Karen?" She looked around nervously before answering. "I didn't mean for it to go that far. The HOA's been under pressure. They've been pushing me to enforce every rule strictly. I thought if I didn't, they'd kick me off the board." I raised an eyebrow. "So you stopped a funeral to keep your position?" Her eyes watered, but I wasn't sure if it was guilt or self-pity. It wasn't supposed to be like that. "I didn't know you had a child watching." I let out a humorless laugh. "That's what broke you? My son seeing it?" She didn't respond, just handed me the folder she was holding. "You should read this." Inside were documents, HOA meeting notes, internal memos. One line stood out immediately. "Use Walker's case as an example of policy enforcement. Public discipline will strengthen HOA control." I looked up sharply. "They planned it?" Karen nodded, voice shaking. "They told me to go through with it no matter what. They said it would make the community respect me. I didn't think they meant for it to become national news." I clenched the papers in my hand. "You didn't think because you didn't care until you became the villain." She wiped a tear, whispering, "I'm sorry. I'll resign. I can't handle this anymore. People are threatening me online." For a moment, I saw something real and fear. Not of me, but of her own mess finally catching up to her. I turned to leave, but she called out, "Wait. You're not going to ruin me publicly, are you?" I stopped, half smiling in the dark. "Karen, I don't have to." Her confusion flickered until a camera flash went off from the trees behind. Her reporters, microphones, flashlights. She froze. I'd already sent them her message hours ago. She wanted to apologize in private. Now the whole world was watching. The flashes blinded her for a moment and she stumbled back, shielding her face. Voices erupted from the dark, reporters shouting over each other, cameras rolling. "Karen, do you have anything to say about stopping the funeral? Is it true the HOA planned it? Do you regret calling the cops on a grieving husband?" She spun toward me, eyes wide with betrayal. "You set me up?" I met her gaze calmly. "No, you set yourself up. I just gave the truth a microphone." The reporters closed in as she tried to compose herself, her voice trembling. "It wasn't my fault." "The board pressured me. I was just following rules, one reporter asked sharply. Did the board tell you to do it? Karen hesitated. Then finally her defenses cracked. Yes, they did. They wanted to make an example out of him. I didn't know it would go this far. The crowd erupted, gasps, murmurs, flashing lights everywhere. Someone was streaming it live. I could see the comments flying across a phone screen. She just admitted it. Corrupt HOA exposed. This is wild. Karen tried to keep talking, her voice desperate now. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I stepped forward, my tone steady but cold. You stopped my wife's coffin at a gate, Karen. You called the police on grief. And now you want sympathy? Her eyes filled with tears, but the crowd wasn't buying it. The cameras followed every word. Then a black SUV pulled up, the same HOA president from before. He stormed toward us, yelling, "Turn those cameras off." You have no right to record this, the lead reporter shouted back. Sir, this is a public area and your board is under investigation. Investigation? He repeated, stopping dead. I held up the folder Karen had given me. These documents, the memos you signed, the proof you ordered her to stop me for publicity. His jaw clenched. You stole those. That's illegal. Actually, I said, nodding toward a reporter who held up her phone. They've already been emailed to the state attorney's office. The man froze. The color drained from his face as the camera zoomed in on him. Karen looked between us, realizing what had just happened. She turned to me, whispering, You said you wouldn't ruin me publicly. I met her eyes one last time. I didn't. You did that the moment you forgot what being human means. The SUV sped off, tires screeching. The reporters followed the story like sharks scenting blood. Within an hour, it was live on every major outlet. HOA official admits to targeting local widower. Investigation underway. As I walked away from the chaos, my brother caught up to me. You sure you're okay with how this ended? I looked back at the park, the same place where she'd stopped my wife's final journey. It's not over yet, I said quietly. Not until the world hears her apology. And that was exactly what I had planned next. The studio lights were blinding. The set was packed. Cameras everywhere, reporters murmuring, and a live audience waiting for the kind of moment that never happens twice. The anchor, a woman with sharp eyes and a calm tone, leaned toward me. Mr. Walker, we've all seen the footage. But tonight you requested this segment live and unedited. Can you tell our viewers why? I glanced at the camera, my voice steady but low. Because justice shouldn't hide behind closed doors. The audience fell silent. The anchor nodded. You also invited someone to join you tonight, correct? I turned my head slightly toward the side entrance. Yes, she should be here any minute, and right on cue the door opened. Karen walked in slowly, head down, escorted by a producer. She looked smaller somehow, not physically but in spirit, like all the noise she once carried had drained out of her. When she sat across from me, the tension in the room could have shattered glass. The anchor broke the silence.
Karen, millions of people have watched what happened that day.
You've faced intense criticism. Tonight you've been given the chance to speak directly to Mr. Walker and to the country. What do you want to say? Karen's hands trembled on her lap. For a long moment she said nothing. Then her voice came out, thin, shaky. I was wrong. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras zoomed in. I didn't see a man mourning his wife. I saw rules, policies, deadlines. I thought I was doing my job. But I forgot what it means to be human, and when I realized what I'd done, it was too late. Her eyes glistened as she looked at me directly. I'm sorry, Jake. I can't take back what I did, but I hope someday you can forgive me. For the first time since all this began, there was no anger left in me, just exhaustion, and maybe a bit of peace. I leaned forward. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting, Karen. It's about not letting hate win. You took something from me I can't replace. But you also reminded everyone watching that power without compassion destroys everything. The crowd broke into quiet applause. The anchor, holding back tears herself, whispered, That's powerful. Karen nodded, silently crying now. I'll resign from the HOA, and I'll help the families they've wronged. It's the least I can do. I turned to the camera, my voice firm. This isn't just about one HOA or one Karen. It's about every system that thinks people are numbers, not lives. My wife deserved dignity. Every person does. The anchor glanced toward the control booth. We're live across the nation, Jake. Anything you'd like to say before we close? I looked at the lens. threw it to every person who'd ever felt powerless, and said softly, "I didn't fight for this country to be told where I can bury the woman I love. Rules don't make us good people. Choices do." The audience stood clapping. Karen bowed her head. The lights dimmed and the broadcast ended. But as I stepped off the stage, my phone buzzed again. A message from the same reporter who'd filmed the first video. "Jake, you might want to see this. The HOA president just got arrested." The notification lit up my phone like a final spark after a long storm. My brother leaned over my shoulder, squinting at the message. "Arrested? For what?" I tapped the link. It opened to a live news feed. The same black SUV that had once screeched away from the park was now surrounded by flashing red and blue lights. The anchor's voice came through clearly. "Breaking news. The HOA president of Lakeside Meadows has been taken into custody for fraud, harassment, and abuse of authority after leaked documents revealed he ordered unlawful enforcement actions against residents." There it was, the end of it all. The man who had turned my grief into his power trip was now in handcuffs. My brother chuckled under his breath. "Guess karma doesn't need a permit either." I smiled faintly. "No, it doesn't." The next few days passed in a blur. Karen officially resigned. The HOA dissolved under public pressure, its funds frozen pending investigation. The neighbors, the same ones who once avoided me out of fear of breaking HOA rules, started showing up at my gate with food, flowers, and quiet apologies. One old lady whispered, "I'm sorry I didn't say something that day." I was scared. I shook my head. "You don't have to be sorry. Just don't let anyone scare you again." The following weekend, I returned to the small patch of land behind my house, the one that had caused all this chaos. The sun was setting, painting the sky gold and red. The wind moved gently through the trees. My son was sitting near the headstone, tracing his mother's name with his fingers. "Dad, is it over now?" he asked quietly. "Almost," I said. He looked up at me, his eyes full of something I hadn't seen in weeks. Peace. Mom would have liked this spot. "Yeah," I said softly, staring at the flowers beside the stone. "She would have loved it." I pulled out my phone, opened the recording from the live show, and played the moment Karen apologized. For a long time, I'd thought justice meant punishment. But watching that again, the raw shame, the public truth, I realized justice wasn't about destroying someone. It was about restoring what they'd tried to take away. That night, as I locked up the gate, a soft breeze moved through the yard. It felt almost like her, like she was home. And maybe finally I was too. I looked up at the sky and whispered, "We did it, Emily. You're at peace now." Then I turned toward the quiet road, the same one where it all began, and smiled to myself. Because in the end, boy, the whole world saw what real power looked like. It wasn't in HOA boards or fake authority or loud rules shouted through fences. It was in love, in truth, and in never letting anyone stand between a man and his family's peace again. The end.